Let's explore habits to break the grief cycle in 2024. This morning's lesson is drawn from a good-hearted question found on Reddit, which begins, Grief and meditation. I'm currently grieving the death of a loved one, and I want to start meditating to help deal with the grieving process. Has anyone good recommendations? My therapist told me to use short meditations that are more inner body experiences than outer body. But I'm not sure, as I'm not too knowledgeable about meditation. All right, so let's begin with brass tacks. There's a wonderful book by Dr. Tom Hartman, PhD. Its title, Walking Your Blues Away. And you can most likely find it on Amazon. Basically, it presents Buddhist walking meditation through the lens of neuroscience and neurolinguistic programming. It's a good book. So what I'd like to do is present to you so whether you buy the book or not, and it could hurt to get that book, I'm going to set you up for walking meditation so you could do it today. And so there's two aspects of it, obviously. There's the walking aspect and the meditation aspect. So let's begin with the meditation aspect. The last thing you want to do is practice active concentration or active analysis. Doing that will fatigue your prefrontal cortex and stimulate your amygdala, the seat of aggression and anxiety. If you persist in exhausting your prefrontal cortex through active concentration and active analysis, you personally could begin presenting with symptoms of depression, and I would not want that for you. So I'm going to give you 4 spoonfuls of good news. Here's the first one. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we access our sympathetic nervous system, which is ensconced within the central third or the middle third of our spinal cord. This has actually evolved to help us to perceive vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, which is the opposite of active concentration, which is all about being very, very static and very, very rigid. So you might say it's all well and good to know which part of the central nervous system we rely on, but what are the mechanics so they can access it? Simple. When we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we will be inducing our brain to actively cooperate with this sympathetic nervous system. Now, I've got a bit of bad news. When we begin perceiving, when we stop resisting perception, we will perceive more and more, not only sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, but also emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings, some of which can be very uncomfortable. now for your second spoonful of good news. Every time we exhale, whether we know it or not, we access our parasympathetic nervous system ensconced within both the lower third and the upper third of that same spinal cord. This parasympathetic nervous system has evolved to support both physical relaxation as well as mental release. And once again, it's great, it's Jim Dandy that we know which body part is responsible for it. How do we access it? Here's how. When we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, our big old brain will cooperate with our parasympathetic nervous system. And so simply by correlating the silent, mental, and passive recitation of one-syllable words, monosyllabic words, such as this and ease, in harmony with our inhalation and our exhalation, we're able to escape the trap of the relationship between the prefrontal cortex and the amygdala, and instead enjoy the benefits of the autonomic nervous system, whose two chief components are our sympathetic system and our parasympathetic system. So, although it's not our job to concentrate on our breath, we can use our breath the way a pianist uses the metronome to keep rhythm. So when we notice our body is breathing in, we can silently and mentally recite this. When we notice our body is breathing out, we can silently and mentally recite ease. Now, so far, those are the two pieces of good news. How's about a third piece of good news? Regularly training our sympathy in perceiving and releasing in this manner will not only pacify our anxious and aggressive amygdala, but will light up this thing right here. This thing that kind of looks like a catcher's mitt. This thing that the big kids call the anterior cingulate gyrus. This thing that functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy and compassion and love. This is why the late Tukul Tundup insisted that the highest love is spontaneous and uncontrived. I think Dilgo Kensei did as well. And now for the third bit of good news. Training regularly in this mindfulness and meditation for as little as 5 minutes every 12 hours or so. The more we do that, the more we will find that our choices, utterances, and deeds begin flowing with the effortless effort of love's centered spontaneity. This is not going to make us the all-being master of time, space, and dimension, but will help us to navigate life with greater skill and ease and love and wisdom. So now that we know the basic mechanics of sitting meditation, how do we apply it to walking meditation? Simple. So first set a course. If you are in great turmoil because of grief, you don't really want to be walking in the street. You don't want to be crossing the street. So definitely do your walking meditation around the block many times. Stride enthusiastically with your legs. Swing your arms. Because you'll be breathing heavily, switch from the one-syllable words to their three-syllable counterparts. During the inhalation, silently and mentally reciting the verb perceiving, and during the exhalation, reciting the verb releasing. These are not affirmations. These are simply words describing what's going on automatically in our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. These are not affirmations. They're just simply tools to coordinate our brain's intention with our sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system's action. Do this for 20 or 40 or 60 minutes every 12 hours, and you will process grief. Your job is not to concentrate on the external or the internal. That's going to exhaust your prefrontal cortex. Anybody who tells you that is poorly educated on the subject. I'm sure your psychologist has spent many years studying and memorizing the Diagnostic Statistical Manual, but he or she is probably not a meditation master. He or she has probably not practiced 1 through 3-year retreat, no less 3 or 6 or 9. They are not a meditation master, and they are not a good source of information on the subject. So it's not our job to choose what we notice. For doing so is about the path of being rigid and controlling. That feeds the relationship between our prefrontal cortex and our amygdala. What we want to do is to be flexible and laid back. This is going to feed our relationship between our brain and our autonomic nervous system. And as a fringe benefit, it's going to make us very loving. Although I cannot walk with you at this time, I can sit with you in meditation, and I would like to do that right now, after approximately 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering every school of meditation so that you would not have to. Welcome, my friends. Oops, let's try this again. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi, which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. So I think it could be great fun if we played with the latest iteration of the spaciousness of Diamond Mind. Composed many, many, many centuries ago by Prahe Vajra, translated by Yeshe Donden, adapted and amplified by this guy right here. Please chant with me. Focusing attention on present pleasures and their future consequences is a limiting way to follow any path. It is something to avoid. So, focusing will get us stuck in the feedback loop between our prefrontal cortex and our amygdala. In fact, I think it would be really helpful if I copied this and, let's see, pasted it right here. And let's hit wrap text, and let's go over here. Okay. So, focusing attention is going to get us stuck in this feedback loop between our prefrontal cortex and our amygdala, and nobody wants that. It's a limiting way to follow any path. It is something to avoid. Fear is not our friend. Fear is the opposite of love. The more we focus on doing so, the more we practice concentration, the more we practice fear, the further from peace and love we will find ourselves. Acting from centered spontaneity, we are not indifferent to consequences. Au contraire, we are flowing from love's centered spontaneity, which is keenly enthusiastic to meet others' needs in the most wonderful way. Doing so from a place of love's centered spontaneity rather than rigidity's fear. So now let's meditate. So, a phrase I'm going to refer to over and over again is Bengali crease counting. And I'm going to present it to you in 3 levels. I'm going to come back to the first level 4 different times. So for the first visit to the first level, I would like you to take your left little finger and touch it to the back of your right little finger and trace it down until you come to the great knuckle at the base of the right little finger. When that great knuckle rests upon the tip of our left little finger in our lap with our palms up, that helps to bring the energy to our lower abdomen, to the area of a womb if we had one. Welcome to this morning's live stream. Please chant the 26th verse with me of the spaciousness of Diamond Mind. Past, present, and future are one, not three. Only the present has endured throughout time. The nature of reality pervades the whole of creation. Its wonderful qualities everywhere to be found. So, this is not the New Age thought of concentrating on the here and now to the exclusion of everything else. What it is saying is that they all mess with each other. They intersect with each other. In the present moment, we can recall the past. In the present moment, we can confabulate the past. In the present moment, we can prognosticate or fantasize about the future. In the present moment, we can perceive all manner of things. Sight, sound, sensations, flavors, scents, and the like, emotions, intentions, thoughts, memories, and imaginings. So, in the present moment, we can perceive, and that's what's being discussed here, a special type of perception that is vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting, ever-changing. So meditation in a nutshell. As we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we can watch the antics of mind as it perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. Similarly, as we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we can relax into mind's non-graspable nature. Now, as I mentioned previously, there are 3 levels to Bengali crease counting. I'd like to review the first level with you by exploring its second variation. To do so, please take the tip of your left ring finger and trace the back of your right ring finger until you come to the great knuckle at its base. When we rest that great knuckle upon the tip of our left ring finger, palms up in our lap, that's going to cause the energy, the subtle energy, to gather in our mid-abdomen, the area that corresponds with our navel. Now I'd like to just explore the second level of Bengali crease counting. And that is the ability to count 12 rounds of breaths. A round would consist of 1 inhalation followed by 1 exhalation. And here's how we do it. During each inhalation, we can advance the tip of our left thumb to 1 crease, and then during the second breath, another crease, and during the next breath, another crease. And we can do that on all 3 sets of creases on all 4 fingers until, because by the virtue of 3 multiplied by 4 equals 12, we count 12 rounds. Learning how to do this is a bit ungainly, but you can master it in about a week. Please join me in chanting the 27th verse. Everything that happens in all the worlds derives from karma, is rooted in concepts, and is phantasmal in nature. Even the situation of a universal emperor is merely a training ground for dealing with illusion. So this is a reference to the philosophy of the South Indian scholar Madhyamaka. No, that was the name of that was the philosophy. The name of the scholar was Nagarjuna. Sorry about that. So things can be both appearing and ultimate. So appearing, things appear to be the fruit of interdependence. Our body affects our experience of pleasure and pain. Our experience of pleasure and pain affects our appraisal of intensity. Our appraisal of intensity affects which of any instinctual drive gets lit up. Our instinctual drives affect our awareness. So these are all interdependents. But on the other hand, every time we relax into our exhalation, whatever we noticed during our previous inhalation feels less graspable, feels less permanent, feels less defining. And so we're being taught is these two can exist simultaneously without canceling each other out. Just as our respiratory system is capable of both inhalation as well as exhalation, we're capable of both perceiving and releasing. Okay, so as mentioned previously, let us return to Bengali crease counting. First, we shall review level 1, variation C, where we take the tip of our left middle finger and we touch it, we trace it down the back of our right middle finger until it comes to the great knuckle at the base of our right middle finger. By resting that great knuckle of our right middle finger upon the tip of our left middle finger in our lap, palms up, we are inviting the subtle energy in our body to gather in our chest in a helpful way. So we've already explored the variation B, where we count 12 rounds on our right hand. Variation C is simply counting sets of 12 rounds. Our first set of 12 rounds, our second set of 12 rounds, our third set of 12 rounds, until we've counted 12 sets of 12 rounds. And if this seems ungainly and complicated, familiarity is the antidote for that. Play with us every 12 hours for a week or so, and it'll feel like you've been doing it your whole life. Please chant the 28th verse with me. Those who meditate using the time-bound intellect will never be liberated within the time frame of their imagining. For those whose practice is rooted in present striving, everything said about emptiness fully applies. All right, so time-bound intellect is an Iron Age way of describing our prefrontal cortex, as opposed to the timelessness of simply noticing and releasing vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. Similarly, most of us have been taught, at least in the tantric tradition, to have many, many prayers and recitations and invocations and the like. But we're reminded here is that all those prayers, all those recitations are as empty as the infinite azure sky, as the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could be tantalizing to the eye, is non-graspable to the hand. So in other words, rather than pseudo-intellectually analyzing or superstitiously praying, it's far more effective to simply notice and release in harmony with the cycles of breath. So, meditation in a nutshell. As we silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during our inhalation, we can kick back and watch the antics of mind as it perceives, emotes, intends, reasons, recalls, and imagines. Similarly, as we silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during our exhalation, we can relax into mind's non-graspable nature. Returning to just the first level of subsection D of Bengali crease counting reminds us that when we take the tip of our left index finger and use it to trace the back of our right index finger until it comes to the great knuckle at its base, and when we rest this great knuckle upon this left index finger, palms up in our lap, it can cause our subtle energy to collect at the crown of our head. If you have just joined us during our inhalation, the easiest way to perceive is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the demonstrative pronoun this during the inhalation. And the easiest way to release is to silently, mentally, and passively recite the one-syllable verb ease during each exhalation. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. In approximately 6 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's afternoon and group practice. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.